Good morning. What I'm going to do today is demonstrate for you the muffin method of mixing quick breads. To do that, we're going to make pancakes and muffins, both, but they both use the muffin method. I'm going to start today with pancakes. And the first thing I'm going to do is turn on my pan. I'm using a saute pan. A frying pan would work okay, but I'm going to turn it to a heat of about medium-high, or on here it's between 6 and 7. I'm just going to let that heat. We talked yesterday. The muffin method involves 2 bowls. 1 bowl for the liquids, 1 bowl for the dries. And I've got these a little bit started. What I've got here is 1 egg. To that I'm going to add 1 cup of milk and 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm going to take a wire whisk, or a fork would also work for this, and I'm going to mix these ingredients together. The primary reason I do this is that the egg is mixed up. That when I add the liquids to the dry, I don't have to mix too much to get that egg mixed. I do it in with the milk. Okay. Then I'm going to do the dry ingredients. I already have 1 cup of flour in here. I'm going to add a tablespoon of sugar. Sugar adds flavor. It makes it turn brown. It also makes it tender. I have a ½ teaspoon of salt that we add for flavor only. I don't have to put salt in, but I'm going to. And I have 1 tablespoon baking powder. This is our leavening agent. That's what's going to make it rise in the pan. Now, your directions say to sift these together. What I'm going to do today is just take my wire whisk and stir them together, but I would like you to use a sifter. But I'm just combining those dry ingredients. I'm adding air, and I'm mixing them together. Now, the recipe calls for making a well in the dry ingredients. So you're going to take a fork or a spoon and just shove the dry ingredients off to the side. And then you take your liquid ingredients and pour it into that well. And because this is a pour batter, we have a ratio of 1:1 liquids to dry, it's going to be rather runny. So I'm going to use a wire whisk to mix it up with. And you're only going to mix this until it's all moist. You don't have any big pockets of flour left. What I'm doing is creating gluten by combining the liquids with the dry, combining the flour with the egg and the milk and the oil. I'm going to stop, and I want you to zoom in here, cameraman, when I still have some lumps. And in the lab situation, I want you to set the wire whisk aside so nobody picks it up and just randomly starts stirring. Now, hopefully by now my pan is hot. You know your pan is hot enough when it does what we call makes water sizzle and dance. I have some water here. I'm just going to put it on the tip of my finger. And it does nothing. I'm not hot enough yet. We'll give that a few more minutes. Okay, cut. Okay, what I've done is taken some nonstick spray, sprayed a light film on the bottom of the pan. I'm going to check to see if it's hot enough, taking that drop of water. This is where it sizzle and dance. It's ready for batter. Take a ladle, almost full, pour it in the middle of the pan, and it should sizzle. You should be able to hear it cooking. If not, it's not hot enough. Notice I still have lumps in there, but that's a good thing. You haven't overdeveloped the gluten. They're going to be nice and tender and light and soft. Okay, notice how there's bubbles breaking. That's your baking powder creating carbon dioxide. And that's helping, it's wanting it to rise and helping it rise. We'll see more rising after we flip it. When those bubbles do not fill in very quickly, and when the edges are set, that's when it's time to flip the pancake. Cut. We'll wait till it gets to that point. We don't need to sit there watching. Okay, now we've got big bubbles. They're taking a long time to fill in, and if you look around the edges, it looks like it's partially cooked from the bottom. I'm going to use the entire pancake turner head. I'm going to get it all the way underneath there to flip it over. Now at this point, if your baking powder is doing its job, it's going to rise, it's going to be light and fluffy. What some people like to do is take that pancake turner and smush it back down because they don't like that. That's a standard, perfect pancake. If you want to work at Perkins or Denny's or any other place that specializes in breakfast foods, you want nice, light, fluffy pancakes. And we're just going to let that cook until the bottom is also brown. And it usually doesn't take as long on the bottom side. And this way you're just going to peek. It's nice and brown. But to serve this pancake, I want you to serve it on this side. Put it on the plate, that side up. If you flip it over, that bottom side doesn't look nearly as nice. So you want to serve it that way up. You can pour syrup on there, powdered sugar, raspberry sauce, strawberry sauce. Put a little butter on there. That's your perfect pancake from scratch. Not hard at all. Cut. The next product that I'm going to demonstrate are the muffins. In lab, you will make the muffins first, and while they're in the oven, you're going to make the pancakes. But for demonstration today, I started with the pour batter and working toward the drop batter of the muffin. It's going to have the same muffin mixing method. 2 bowls, one for liquid, one for dry. You're going to start by sifting the dry ingredients. Here I have the sifter out. I've got 1 cup of flour again, just like the pancakes. I'm going to put that right into the sifter. This time I have 2 tablespoons of sugar. Muffins are a little bit sweeter than pancakes, so I'll double the sugar. If you are doing blueberry or apple cinnamon, they're all going to require more sugar to make up for the fruit. There's a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1.5 teaspoons baking powder for leavening, and then you sift it together. I'm going to turn the crank and let it all come out the bottom. Adding air so we have a nice light product. Okay, and we will use all of that. The other bowl will be for our liquids. I'll use this one. Now, this recipe calls for 1/2 an egg. How do you do 1/2 an egg? You're going to put it into a measuring cup, use a fork, and mix it up like you would for scrambled eggs. So you've got equal parts yolk, equal parts white. Each part of the egg does a different thing when you bake with it, so you can't just take one part and give the other part to the other half. So I've mixed that up. Most large eggs are 1/4 of a cup. And that's about what I have here. So if I cut that in half, that would be 2 tablespoons. So this isn't a very slick process because it likes to slide out, but you're going to take out as best you can 2 tablespoons of eggs. And then you can use the other 2 tablespoons to give to another kitchen for their recipe. To that I'm going to add the other liquid ingredients. This time I only have 1/2 cup of milk. Remember, this is a pour batter, or a drop batter, excuse me, so there's less liquid than there is flour, about 1/2 as much, a 1-to-2 ratio. Adding the milk and the fat for tenderness. And again, mixing those together. Take my spoon and in the dry ingredients, now come close, cameraman. I'm going to create that well in the middle of the dry ingredients again with my spoon. Notice I've switched from a wire whisk to a wooden spoon because this is going to be a thicker batter and I don't want to get it caught inside the wire whisk. But again, pouring the liquid in, stirring around the outside, and stirring just until moist. We're going to have a lumpy batter when we're done. We're making gluten, but we don't want to make too much gluten. We're done seeing flour. Now, if you are adding blueberries or apples, this would be the point that you would just gently stir those in a little bit. Okay, we're done. Again, take that spoon away so you don't just stand there and stir while you're visiting. Okay. The next step is getting the batter out of the bowl into the muffin tin without, again, overmixing it, making too much gluten. Now with your muffin tin, you can either use the papers, which is easy cleanup, easy preparation, or you can spray the bottoms of the muffin tin itself. Either way works well. What you want to do with this is you want to fill the muffin tin about 2/3 full without having to double dip. Try to get it all in a nice big spoon. Take 1 spoon and shove it in. Notice how it's not pretty? You don't want it pretty. You want to have rough tops. In order to have rough tops, you got to have bumpy tops going in. This recipe should make about 6 muffins, or if you're adding a lot of fruit, maybe a few more than that to make up for the extra fruit that you put in. Notice I'm 1 dipping each muffin. Okay. These go into a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes. You'll be making these first, and while they're in the oven, make